First, I asked her why she had sex with Trump. Listen to that, and then listen to what she says after that, because it's quite at variance of what she said to me in 2018. Why did you Donald Trump?
I have no idea.
But you say it's not a Me Too case.
It is not a Me Too case. I mean, I wasn't assaulted. I wasn't attacked or worse, or blackmailed. They tried to shove me in the Me Too box to further their own agenda. And first of all, I didn't want any part of that because it's not the truth, and I'm not a victim.
That's not what she's saying now. She's talking about he was bigger and blocking the way. It's all the Me Too buzzwords. She said there was a power imbalance of power, for sure. My hands were shaking so hard. She said she blacked out. Blacked out? She's a star.
I admit I may not have spent as much time in a courtroom as you have.
That's a good one.
I was also recognized with a Special Achievement Award by the Department of Justice. You remember the Department of Justice, right? It's the agency that's been pursuing you for decades. And like Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, I've had a history of prosecuting sex offenders. So thank you for keeping people like us in business. And as for dumb questions, you're always welcome to come here and answer some, if sitting so close to a prosecutor won't make you nervous. I'll even give you a free View mug, not to be confused, though, with a mugshot, because that's your area.
Maher is furious, firing off harsh words at Sunny Hostin after her latest round of criticism against Trump. These two have been at it since Maher's fiery debate on The View, and it seems neither is backing down. So, what exactly did Sunny say about Trump that set Maher off? And how did Maher respond with his signature no-holds-barred style? Grab your popcorn because this showdown is going to be messy. Bill Maher recently blasted Sunny Hostin for her constant attacks on Trump, and let's just say it caught people off guard. Why the surprise? Ma defending Trump is like a vegan praising barbecue. It's just not something you expect. Ma has been vocal about his dislike for Trump for years, practically making it his hobby since 2016. So, to see him stand up for the man he's criticized for so long is shocking. Did Ma lose his memory? Or is this a twist no one saw coming? Whatever's going on, it's left everyone both shocked and entertained. Get ready because this story is a wild one, and Ma's role in it will surprise you. For over a year, Sunny Hostin and the View team have relentlessly gone after Trump, treating him like the ultimate villain. They've insulted his intelligence, torn apart his personality, trashed his family, and dismissed his policies like a failed TV script. Meanwhile, their audience has eagerly eaten it all up. But Trump, not one to stay quiet, fired back at a campaign event in Pennsylvania. Take Sunny a listen.
I think the other one asking the question is dumber than Kamala, so she's a dummy. I watched her over the years. That is one dumb woman. Sorry. I'm sorry, women. She's a dummy.
Trump didn't hold back. He called Sunny Hostin a dummy. Now, if you've been watching The View over the last year, you know Hostin has made correcting herself part of her routine. It's become so common, you almost expect her to start the show with, and now, today's corrections. So, was Trump insulting her, or was he just pointing out the truth? After all, with how often she's messed up on live TV, his comment might just be an honest observation. But here's the thing, when you go up against Trump, you better be ready for a verbal battle. The man doesn't do subtle. As usual, the drama escalated, proving that in Trump's world, no insult is left unanswered, and no feud is ever truly over. But Hostin wasn't backing down either. She came back with fresh attacks on Trump, referring to his legal issues and political ambitions.
I admit I may not have spent as much time in a courtroom as you have.
That's a good one.
I was also recognized with a Special Achievement Award by the Department of Justice. You remember the Department of Justice, right? It's the agency that's been pursuing you for decades. And like Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, I've had a history of prosecuting sex offenders. So thank you for keeping people like us in business. And as for dumb questions, you're always welcome to come here and answer some, if sitting so close to a prosecutor won't make you nervous. I'll even give you a free View mug, Not to be confused, though, with the mugshot. Because that's your area.
We've got to admit, Hostin really knows how to deliver a punch with her words. She spoke with that calm, calculated tone that could make anyone think twice. She's like a cold-hearted mercenary, throwing verbal grenades without blinking. It's almost impressive. Hostin doesn't just insult. She crafts her takedowns like she's preparing for a major movie role. Poised, precise, and full of venom. But beneath that cool demeanor, she knows she's playing with fire, which is probably why she's been sticking to her legal notes like a daily ritual. If this keeps up, The View might spin off into a legal drama with Hostin as both the prosecutor and defendant. Honestly, grab the popcorn. This is prime TV. Trump may not have had the time or patience for a comeback. After all, he had an election to win and the country to run. So instead of diving into the mess, he left the fighting to, his defenders, one of whom, surprisingly, is Bill Maher.
I asked her why she had sex with Trump. Listen to that, and then listen to what she says after that, because it's quite at variance of what she said to me in 2018. Why did you Donald Trump?
I have no idea.
But you say it's not a Me Too case.
It is not a Me Too case. I mean, I wasn't assaulted. I wasn't attacked or worse, or blackmailed. They tried to shove me in the Me Too box to further their own agenda. And first of all, I didn't want any part of that because it's not the truth, and I'm not a victim.
That's not what she's saying now. She's talking about he was bigger and blocking the way. It's all the Me Too buzzwords. She said there was a power imbalance of power, for sure. My hands were shaking so hard. She said she blacked out. Blacked out? She's a
Now here's where things get interesting. Bill Maher, of all people, is defending Trump against the allegations made by Stormy Daniels. And guess what? These are the same allegations that Sunny Hostin latched onto during her fiery anti-Trump tirades. But here's the twist. If Hostin were really the prosecutor she claims to be, she'd have noticed the glaring inconsistencies in Daniels' testimony. It's not rocket science. It's just basic fact-checking. But as we know, woke culture tends to cloud judgment, pushing people to double down on their biases instead of seeking the truth. Why bother with the facts when it's so much more fun to be outraged, right?
The trial in New York, the one he got convicted for, was the greatest fundraising bonanza ever. He was lagging behind Biden, and now he's pulled quite a bit ahead. That trial was the greatest reason people had to send their checks for 5, 10, 25, whatever dollars to Donald Trump. So I was always with you on the one in New York, the hush money trial. I don't think they should have brought that one. It was just always going to look like a sex case, and people were always just going to look at it that way.
Bill Maher turned his focus to Sunny Hostin's anti-Trump rants, breaking them down with the precision of a stand-up comedian moonlighting as a surgeon. According to Maher, Hostin's attacks are exactly why Trump is gaining more support. He argued that her dramatic outbursts and constant moral high ground don't hurt Trump. In fact, they help him. She's practically handing him the loyalty of his base on a silver platter. If anything, she's doing more for Trump's campaign than some of his own advisors. In Maher's view, the legal cases Hostin loves to focus on are nothing more than political witch hunts that should never have been allowed to go this far. How is this even news? Ma essentially implied that dragging Stormy Daniels' testimony and similar stories into the public eye isn't about justice. It's about playing petty political games. Let's be real, he's got a point. At this point, it feels like these cases are made for daytime drama, not a courtroom. You'd think the woke mob could at least land a solid punch, but instead, they're throwing wild jabs and landing face first in the mud. No wonder Ma had to call it out. Sometimes the absurdity is just too good to ignore.
I think the more relevant question actually is, what is wrong with America? What is wrong with our country that the Republican Party would choose as a candidate and support a candidate who is an insurrectionist, who is an election denier, who is someone who is twice impeached, 34-time convicted felon, someone who has been accused of alleged sexual misconduct by 26 women, found liable for sexual abuse. What is wrong with this country that they would choose a message of divisiveness, of xenophobia, of racism, of misogyny, over a message of inclusiveness, a message for the people, by the people, of the people? That is what the problem is.
When Hostin finally realized she was wrong, that the American people supported Trump because they believed in his policies, she did something unexpected. She turned her fire on the voters themselves. Just listen to this, straight out of White. The woke playbook, when all else fails, attack the people who disagree with you. Why? Because in their world, Their views are gospel, and anyone who dares to think differently is wrong. Hostin took this tired approach and went after the millions of Americans who voted for Trump. She argued that Trump's legal troubles should have been enough to turn his supporters against him. But here's the twist. She refuses to acknowledge that those court cases didn't weaken Trump's base. They made them stronger. Why? Because Trump didn't just run a campaign. He started a movement that resonated with people from all walks of life. He framed himself as the underdog, fighting against a system rigged against the little guy, and his supporters rallied behind that message. To them, the endless court cases weren't proof of guilt. They were proof that the establishment was desperate to bring him down. Hostin's failure to grasp this dynamic is why her attacks fall flat. Instead of understanding why people are drawn to Trump, she demonizes them for having a different opinion. This is peak woke culture. Ignore nuance, vilify dissent, and double down on self-righteous outrage. It's no wonder her rants have lost their impact. But there's a twist in the story, one that will show just how spectacularly Hostin's attacks backfired. And we'll get to that later.
He has some real fans.
Oh, sure.
But there's a lot of people who voted for him, and that's their little secret. We don't like him either. We just vote for him because the stuff that you guys are doing on your fringe is scarier to us than what he's doing, which is saying a lot. And I'm not quite with them, but I get it.
Yeah, I think it's also that
Bill Maher laid it out clearly. People didn't vote for Trump because they're obsessed with his personality, but because his policies felt more grounded, safer, and in line with traditional American values. When compared to the chaotic circus of the woke agenda, Trump's appeal makes more sense. It's not hard for people to choose a side when one party is pushing for basic things like border security and economic stability, while the other is arguing that 12-year-olds should make life-altering decisions about transitioning without parental consent. Bill didn't hold back, criticizing woke initiatives like allowing trans women to compete in women's sports, leaving female athletes to lose medals. Or how about the relentless drive to rewrite history and cancel people who existed before? 2016, Maher argued that this constant grievance culture makes Trump look sane by comparison. While the woke crowd is focused on pronouns and making sure everyone feels seen, regular folks are wondering about issues like gas prices and neighborhood safety. It's like offering someone a kale smoothie when they're starving. They don't want your performative nonsense, they want real solutions. So, while Trump's approach is straightforward and sometimes messy, it's a breath of fresh air compared to the woke hot air. And remember when we said that some hosting plans backfired? Well, buckle up, here it comes.
About 31% of Americans trust our healthcare system. We have a terrible healthcare system. And, you know, doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, you know, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained his whole life to do.
Did Sunny Hostin just throw her own husband under the bus? Oh, absolutely. For anyone who believes in karma, grab your popcorn, because this is poetic justice at its finest. Just 2 months ago, Sunny was roasting Trump over his supposed politically motivated legal issues, all while conveniently hiding her own skeletons. Turns out, while Sunny was lecturing America about morals on The View, her husband was allegedly involved in some classic insurance fraud. But that's the thing with woke culture, right? They preach justice while ignoring their own backyard. Sunny spent all that time obsessing over Trump's tax returns, but missed the fraud receipts in her own house. Talk about irony. And let's not forget her favorite pastime, pointing out the speck in Trump's eye while conveniently ignoring the lumber aisle in her own. Honestly, it's almost impressive how she manages to juggle all that moral superiority while standing knee-deep in hypocrisy. If hypocrisy were an Olympic sport, Sunny would be winning gold medals by the dozen. Maybe next time, she'll spend less time virtue signaling and more time running a background check on her own inner circle. But if you thought that's all the karma Sunny's going to get, just wait for this.
Daniel Manny Hostin, an orthopedic surgeon and husband of The View co-host Sunny Hostin, is accused in December lawsuit fraudulently billing insurance. By the way, this is a Daily Caller story I'm reading. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases. Wow.
Yep, you heard it right. While Sunny Hostin has been busy throwing verbal grenades at Trump, her own household has some skeletons rattling in the closet. Beyond the allegations of insurance fraud, her husband has allegedly been tied to the graver. Crime of RICO, yes, the kind of crime you see in mob movies, not suburban family dramas. So, guess who might be spending more time in court than Donald Trump? Spoiler alert, it's not Trump. If those charges stick, her husband could be looking at a lengthy sentence behind bars. Imagine the irony. While she's ranting about Trump's legal troubles, her husband might be starring in his own courtroom drama. Oh, the poetic justice. And don't forget, Trump's back in power now, so Sunny might want to tread carefully. After all, when the tables turn, they tend to turn with a vengeance. If this saga gets any juicier, Netflix might want to buy the rights. But here's something interesting. Every time someone goes after Trump or Bill Maher, they end up on the losing side. Remember when Whoopi Goldberg went after Bill Maher and called him flippant? No? Well, maybe this will jog your memory.
He's forgetting that people are still at risk who cannot get vaccinated. People who can't get that. Little kids under the age of 5.
Yeah.
Or people with health conditions. How dare you be so flippant, man?
It all started when Bill Maher had the audacity to suggest that life should return to normal after the COVID-19 pandemic. Shocking, right? According to Maher, we couldn't stay locked up forever, letting the virus dictate every aspect of our lives. And true to form, Maher didn't just throw out an opinion. He came armed with evidence showing that we could resume normal life without chaos. A reasonable take, right? Well, not for Whoopi Goldberg. She went after Maher with everything. She had like a gladiator preparing for battle. Whoopi practically treated Maher's call for normalcy like he'd suggested we all start licking doorknobs. Her outrage was so intense, it was as if Maher had personally insulted her home decor. What's wild is that Maher's argument wasn't even controversial, unless, of course, you think living in fear forever is a badge of honor. But Whoopi's outrage was classic performative theater, serving up just the kind of overreaction we expect from the self-appointed guardians of the right way to think. Why debate when you can just scream, right? But karma delivered a plot twist. After Whoopi went after Bill Maher, she found herself suspended from The View for making a controversial statement about the Holocaust not being racially motivated. This caused such a collective gasp that it probably echoed across the internet. But here's the kicker. Bill Maher, ever the provocateur, didn't see it as karma. In fact, he thought the network went too far and shouldn't have taken her off the show.
Saying that Whoopi Goldberg getting yanked from The View right after she attacked me on The View is karma. There's no such thing as karma, sorry. Sorry, but life is random. The only word to describe it when a big game hunter gets trampled by an elephant and then eaten by lions is hilarious.
All right, you've probably seen this clip before, so no need to rehash it. Here's the point. Whenever Sunny Hostin and Whoopi Goldberg take shots at Donald Trump or Bill Maher, it always seems to backfire in the most spectacular ways. Call it karma if you like. Case in point, Hostin, who has spent months roasting Maher and Trump, now finds herself in the spotlight because of her husband's involvement in one of New York's biggest lawsuits. Talk about a plot twist. It might seem like Maher and Trump are untouchable, but they tend to be on the side of truth. As the saying goes, truth always wins. Meanwhile, Sunny Hostin and her husband are now gearing up for a legal battle.
Hostin and her husband, Dr. Emmanuel Hostin, are preparing for a legal battle to fight accusations that he committed federal insurance fraud. The View co-host and the orthopedic surgeon have hired lawyers Mark Garagos and Daniel Thwaites after Emmanuel was named in one of the largest federal RICO cases ever filed in New York.
The Hostins have brought in the big guns with celebrity attorney Mark Garagos leading their defense team. You know, the guy who's represented everyone from Michael Jackson to Winona Ryder. Alongside him is Daniel Thwaites, a lawyer whose name sounds straight out of a John Grisham novel. Together, they're not just defending against fraud allegations, they're launching a $5 million countersuit for defamation and emotional distress. Why not raise the stakes in this real-life episode of Law & Order Hypocrisy Unit? Sunny, of course, has denounced the lawsuit as a desperate attempt to tarnish her clean image. But let's be real, it's hard to preach morality on national TV when your husband is allegedly playing fast and loose with insurance claims. Still, the Hostins are confident they'll come out on top. After all, when you've got Gagos in your corner and a talk show pulpit to control the narrative, how can you lose? But here's the kicker. None of this legal mess would have happened if Sunny had just learned the fine art of keeping her mouth shut. Seriously, for someone who spends so much time roasting others for their legal issues, you'd think she'd realize that drawing attention to herself might not be the best strategy. It's almost poetic. Sunny has spent months dragging Trump and others through the mud for their alleged wrongdoings, only to find herself embroiled in the very same courtroom drama she loves to critique. Maybe next time, she'll take a page from the less is more playbook and, I don't know, maybe keep her breath. Or better yet, she could take this sound advice from Bill Maher.
Have moments from your past that make you cringe. Who hasn't said, I can't believe I said that? I can't believe I wore that. I can't believe I thought that. I can't believe I did that. You ate dirt.
Bill Maher reminds Sunny Hostin and everyone else that we all have moments in our past we'd prefer to keep private. Let's face it, if someone hit play on our highlight reel of worst decisions, it'd be cringeworthy enough to power a small city. And don't even get me started on the number of people who'd be packing bags for a one-way trip to prison. The truth is, we're all flawed, messy, imperfect people, just dirt with Netflix subscriptions. So, dragging up Trump's past like it's the season finale of a reality show simply because he's running for president, that's not the moral high ground. It's the political equivalent of obsessively scrolling through your ex's Facebook. At 3 a.m., it's petty, embarrassing, and says more about the person digging than the subject itself. Maher's point is simple. If we're all judged by our worst moments, no one comes out clean. And honestly, isn't it a little hypocritical? To demand perfection from someone else when your own house is overflowing with skeletons?
Who could afford one had a slave, including people of color. The way people talk about slavery these days, you'd think it was a uniquely American thing that we invented in 1619. But slavery throughout history has been the rule, not the exception.
Even in his more generous moments, Bill Maher couldn't resist taking a jab at Sunny Hostin. Why? Because she's practically built her career on dissecting America's history of slavery, turning it into a soapbox for moral lessons. While her critiques may have merit, Maher's comments suggest he's growing weary of her one-note narrative. How many times can you beat the same drum before people start tuning out? It's almost like he's saying, we get it, Sunny. America's past wasn't perfect, but is there anything else you want to talk about? Now, here's the twist. Hostin, who loves bringing up slavery, recently uncovered some shocking truths about her own ancestors. Truths that completely rocked her. Take a listen.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah.
Yep, you heard that right. Sunny Hostin, who has spent years condemning America's history of slavery, was stunned to find out that her own ancestors were slave owners. Irony's doing a victory lap, folks. Imagine the shock on her face when she made the discovery. Half disbelief, half wishing it were a mistake. For someone whose career revolves around lecturing others about America's moral failings, this revelation must have hit like a ton of bricks. It's like discovering the captain of the vegan club secretly owns a cattle ranch. But honestly, Sunny's not alone in facing this awkward reality. History has a funny way of humbling even the loudest critics. Maybe, just maybe, this moment will remind her that pointing fingers often leaves three pointing back at you. Perhaps her next crusade will involve some self-reflection, or at least a more nuanced perspective on history.
It's not that I've gotten old, it's that your ideas are stupid, okay?
Common sense is still common sense.
Yes, common sense is common sense, and I'm gonna call it out wherever it is on the spectrum.
Here, Bill Maher is subtly reminding Sunny Hostin and her crew that his idea of showing a little charity toward people's pasts isn't so radical after all. If Hostin had even a shred of leniency toward Trump's past, maybe people would be a little more forgiving now that she and her husband find themselves tangled in their own legal mess. But no, instead of practicing what she preaches, Hostin went full throttle in digging up Trump's history like she was auditioning for a true crime documentary. And now karma has RSVP'd to the party. Nothing screams irony quite like watching the moral high ground collapse beneath you while you're busy pointing fingers at someone else. If Maher's point hasn't landed yet, it should. A little empathy and self-awareness go a long way. Hostin might have learned this lesson if she'd spent less time perfecting her Trump takedowns and more time, dealing with her own skeletons before they threw a parade. That's all for today, folks. If you enjoyed this analysis, hit the like button and subscribe for more insightful commentary. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.